All right, so are UK degrees really worth the hype?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, that's what we're diving into today, this whole thing with UK universities and how much they rely on international student fees.
Yeah, it's a big conversation right now.
It is, and a recent BBC investigation is saying that it might be causing some problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Well, they're saying that some universities might be letting in international students who don't really have strong enough English skills.
Hmm. And why would they do that?
Well, because they need the money.
Ah, yeah, makes sense.
And so we're going to be looking at a BBC article on this, a BBC Sounds episode they did called The International Student Scandal, some research from the Office for Students.
Oh, wow. So we've got a lot of different sources.
We do, and also statements from both universities UK and HEPI.
Okay, so we'll get like the university's perspective and then like a policy perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be looking at all of that today.
Wow, sounds interesting.
It is interesting. So, okay, the BBC investigation is saying that it's like an open secret that universities are admitting these international students.
Whose English skills aren't good enough.
Yeah, and it's leading some students to rely on essay mills.
Oh, so they're like cheating,
Basically, yeah.
which is a huge problem, obviously.
Yeah, and the BBC spoke to this Iranian master's student.
Okay.
They called her Yasmin to keep her anonymous, and she said that like 90% of her classmates might be using these essay mills.
90%. Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's scary to think that that many people are like getting away with that.
I know, it makes you think like, what is going on?
Yeah, and they interviewed this academic from the Russell Group.
Oh, wow. So someone who's like really in the thick of it.
Yeah, and this person basically confirmed Yasmin's claims about essay mills.
Really?
Yeah, and hinted that academic ability is not always a top priority for universities.
So they're saying that money is more important.
It sounds like it.
Which makes sense because the Office for Students has predicted that UK universities could be facing massive deficits by 2025, 2026.
Oh, wow.
I know, so international students, they often pay way more.
Yeah, so they're the catch house.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's not surprising that universities would be like, we need more international students.
Yeah, the general secretary of the University and College Union even said that universities are like stockpiling international students just to offset those financial problems.
Stockpiling, that's a strong word.
It is a very strong
Maybe it could seem like they're treating students like objects or something.
Right, like commodities or something.
Exactly.
And so it's like, okay, are they sacrificing academic quality for money?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is. And the BBC, they found out that these essay mills are specifically targeting international students.
Really?
Yeah, even though it's illegal in England.
Oh, wow.
I know. So why are they targeting international students?
I mean, maybe they're just more vulnerable or they feel more pressure to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, imagine coming to a new country.
New culture.
Yeah, and you have to do well in school, and you maybe don't speak the language perfectly.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
And so you can see why they might be tempted to, like, take a shortcut.
Right, and so Universities UK says that they're trying to make sure students are competent, but they also admit that they're reviewing the language tests.
Okay, so they're doing something.
Yeah, they are doing something.
But is it enough?
That's the question.
Because the Home Office is thinking about this whole new secure English language testing model that could cost over £1 billion.
Over £1 billion.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a lot of money.
It is, and it makes you wonder, is this really the best way to deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, is there a better solution?
Exactly. And then there's this blog that was published by HEPI,
Okay.
written by two professors from the Russell Group,
Okay.
and they wanted to remain anonymous.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're worried about like repercussions or something, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyway, they're saying that there are definitely issues with English proficiency among international students.
Right.
But they're saying it's part of a bigger problem.
Oh, like what?
They're saying that the UK higher education system has been underfunded for so long,
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
and it's become too focused on making money
Right.
instead of focusing on education.
Yeah, it was like they've lost sight of what's important.
Exactly.
One of them said that our typical seminar experience is that material must be delivered in a lecture style and preferably as a written document so that it can be translated.
Wow.
I know, and it really shows you the challenges that these professors are facing.
Yeah, it's not easy for them.
It's not.
And so it's like, yeah, are universities prioritizing money over education?
It's a tough question, and we're going to keep exploring it, but we also have to remember that there are other perspectives.
Right.
Rose Stevenson from HEPI, she says that international students bring a lot of cultural and economic benefits to the UK.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And she says that we need to make sure that all students have a positive experience.
Yeah, that's important.
It is important.
So it's not as simple as like good and bad.
No, it's very nuanced.
It's complicated.
And we need to look at all sides of the story.
Absolutely.
And this debate is like part of a bigger trend we've been seeing.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that Sunday Times report about international pathway programs?
Yeah, I remember that.
It was saying that these programs might be pushing out domestic students.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like we need to find a way to balance the benefits of internationalization with the needs of domestic students.
Yeah, we don't want to leave anyone behind.
Exactly.
So it's a lot to think about.
It is.
And it's not easy to find the right answers.
No, it's not, but that's why we're having this conversation.
Right, to try to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And to see what you think.
Yeah. What do you think so far?
I think it's really complicated, and there are a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, me.
But we're going to keep unpacking this in part 2.
Can't wait.
So stay tuned.
It feels like we're just scratching the surface here, you know?
Yeah, it's a really complex issue, and it's not just limited to the UK.
Right, this is happening all over the world.
Exactly. Universities everywhere are facing these same pressures.
Yeah, trying to balance the books while maintaining academic standards.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what does this all mean for the future of universities?
Yeah, what's going to...
Like, what are the long-term consequences of all this?
Well, I think one big concern is that universities are becoming too reliant on international student fees.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, what happens if that revenue stream dries up?
Yeah, like during the pandemic.
Exactly.
A lot of universities really struggled when international students couldn't travel.
Exactly, and it just shows how vulnerable they are.
Right.
So maybe they need to diversify their funding.
Yeah, find other ways to bring in money.
Exactly.
And what about the students themselves?
Yeah, that's a huge issue.
Both domestic and international.
Right. Are domestic students being squeezed out?
Yeah, that's a real worry.
And are international students getting the support they need?
Right, or are they just being seen as dollar signs?
Exactly.
And then there's the reputation of UK universities.
Yeah, that's a big one.
If people start to think that UK degrees aren't as good as they used to be.
That could have a huge impact.
Absolutely.
So what can we do about all this?
Well, some people say that the government should increase funding for higher education.
Okay, so take some of the pressure off universities.
Exactly. But of course, that's easier said than done.
Right. The government has its own budget problems.
Yeah, but it's still something to consider.
Yeah, definitely.
Another idea is to tighten the rules around language testing for international students.
Make sure they're really proficient in English.
Yeah, but that's also tricky.
Right, because you don't want to make it too difficult for students to come here.
Exactly.
And there's the cost of those tests, too.
Right. The Home Office's new secure English language testing model is supposed to be really expensive.
Yeah, over £1 billion.
So it's like we need to find solutions that are both effective and affordable.
Exactly.
And what about the universities themselves? What can they do?
Well, I think transparency is really important.
Yeah, being open about their admissions processes.
Exactly. And how they're using international student fees.
Right, so that everyone knows what's going on.
And they should also invest more in support services for international students.
Oh, yeah,
Like
definitely.
language support and cultural integration programs.
Make them feel welcome and help them succeed.
Exactly.
And we can't forget about academic integrity.
Right. We need to crack down on those essay mills.
Educate students about the importance of honesty.
And make sure there are consequences for cheating.
Exactly.
It's a shared responsibility.
Yeah, everyone needs to do their part.
And maybe we need to rethink how we value higher education as a society.
Ooh, that's a big question.
It is. Are we too focused on degrees as a means to an end?
Right, like just a way to get a job.
Exactly. Instead of valuing learning for its own sake.
That's a really good point.
So what do you think? Where do you stand on all this?
It feels like we've gone way beyond just like the money side of things.
Yeah, it's about more than just like, are universities charging too much?
Exactly. It's about the whole purpose of education, you know?
Yeah, like what are we actually trying to achieve here?
Right. Are we just churning out graduates for the workforce?
Or are we trying to create like well-rounded individuals?
Yeah, people who can think critically and solve problems.
And contribute to society.
Exactly. And I think that's what's been so interesting about this deep dive.
What do you mean?
Well, it's really challenged me to think about my own assumptions about education.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, I think I used to have this very simplistic view of it.
Like what?
Like, oh, you go to university, you get a degree, you get a good job, end of story.
Right.
But it's so much more complicated than that.
It really is.
And I think this whole debate about international students has really highlighted that.
Yeah, because it's not just about the money.
No, it's about values.
Exactly. Like what do we value in education?
right? Do we value diversity?
Do we value academic excellence?
Do we value fairness?
It's a balancing act.
It is, and there's no easy answer.
Definitely not.
But I think having these conversations is so important.
Yeah, because we need to figure out what we want higher education to be.
Right. What role do we want it to play in society?
Exactly.
And I think that's a question for everyone, not just policymakers and university administrators.
Right. Students need to be part of this conversation too.
Absolutely.
So if you're listening to this right now, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, what do you think?
What are your hopes and fears for the future of higher education?
Let's keep this conversation going.
Because it's a conversation that matters.
It really does. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
And until next time, keep those brain cells buzzing.